This episode is a time capsule, and honestly, it's incredible how much has changed for the pod since I recorded it. This is an older format I accidentally abandoned, the one where I don't interview anyone, I don't keep it light, I just go deep on something that matters to me. And this one is personal. I have a degree in psychology, I spent years studying motivation, attention, and behavior. I understood ADHD academically, but somehow it never occurred to me that I might actually have it. Not until the quirks became patterns, and the patterns got loud enough to bring me to a doctor's office. And at 39, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And the diagnosis wasn't a finish line, it was a doorway into understanding how a dopamine-hungry brain can quietly shape your work, your habits, your self-talk, and especially your relationships. That was the big realization for me. This episode is about something I've come to believe a lot of high achievers are living inside of without realizing: the pressure loop, the pattern where chaos becomes fuel, urgency becomes identity, and peace starts to feel unsafe. So if you're the kind of person who overbooks your calendar, works best at the last possible minute, feels alive in intensity, and then crashes hard when the noise fades, this one's for you. Not to label you, not to diagnose you, but to help you see the system you've been living inside, and to give you a way out that doesn't require shame. Let's go deep. When the signs were no longer just quirks, they were patterns. What finally brought me into my doctor's office wasn't ADHD, though. It was a podcast about low testosterone. I wasn't focused. I'd sit down on my desk with a list of things to do, and somehow none of them would ever get done. I thought maybe something was wrong with my body, maybe hormones, maybe burnout, or maybe both. But what I didn't realize was that my brain had been writing its own story this whole time, and I was just starting to read the first page. At 39 years old, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And let me tell you, the diagnosis wasn't a finish line. It was only the beginning. It was a doorway into understanding parts of myself that never quite made sense before. And the more I walked through that doorway, the more I realized ADHD just didn't affect my focus. It really touched everything. My work, my habits, my self-talk, and especially my relationships. Just last month, I read a research study about how ADHD shows up in adult relationships, and it felt like someone had turned the lights on in a room I didn't know I'd been living in. So today on the show, what if the real problem is your nervous system isn't wired for peace, but instead for pressure? You don't just have ADHD. You might have a brain that's been trained to equate stimulation with survival. We're diving into a topic that hits close to home for so many of us, especially high achievers and professionals with ADHD or ADHD-like tendencies. This isn't just about distraction. It's about how we chase chaos just to feel alive. So let's talk about what it really means to live with a dopamine-hungry brain and how to create success without burning ourselves out. So let me guess, your calendar is full. There's meetings, workouts, side projects, that online course you still haven't finished. You feel the most alive when everything is urgent, when there's no space to think. But when the noise fades, you crash, and you crash hard. ADHD isn't about being disorganized, forgetting where you put your keys, or zoning out in meetings. It's about constantly trying to feel enough, to feel awake, to feel momentum. It's waking up and needing to create pressure, to feel purpose. If you're someone who overbooks your schedule, who works best at the last possible minute, and who feels totally drained after a surge of productivity, but keeps repeating the cycle, well, you might be in what I call a dopamine loop. But here's what it looks like. Here's how it works. You set a bunch of tasks, and you procrastinate until the pressure is unbearable. And then, boom, there's a dopamine surge. And suddenly you have clarity, speed, and focus. You finish everything in a burst, and you feel like a genius. And then you crash. You shame yourself for the crash. And the next time, you just do it all again. ADHD is often seen through the lens of behavior like this. And for many adults with ADHD, especially high achievers, this shows up as a need for stimulation. But here's some lesser known ADHD behaviors. And these are the ones that really resonate with me. The first is what I call messy perfectionism. What does this look like? Well, it looks like putting off tasks until they can be done perfectly. And it's often misunderstood as just laziness or procrastination. But what's actually happening is there's a fear of failure or being overwhelmed by the complexity of starting the task. But ADHD isn't just a problem behavior. It is a regulation problem. It's about how your brain handles the dopamine. Now, the second is all or nothing energy management. And what this looks like is going hard for a week, right? And then crashing hard. It's misunderstood as being inconsistent or flaky, when actually you're struggling to moderate your energy output. There's sort of no internal cruise control. Next, there's overcommitting or time blindness. It often looks like time blindness. It looks like enthusiasm to take on multiple roles, projects, and tasks, but it's misunderstood as being driven or just overly ambitious, when actually underestimating how long things take is due to impaired time perception. That dopamine really affects the way we perceive the amount of time that's passing. And then lastly, the fourth way that it kind of personally shows up for me is hyperfocus. It looks like staying locked in on a task for hours, even skipping meals or ignoring texts. It's misunderstood as being super productive or a workaholic, but it's actually a dopamine surge that makes it hard to stop. Not hard to start. So you overschedule, you say yes to everything, you create pressure, and you do this just to feel. It becomes your normal. You think, I must be lazy if I don't have something urgent to do. But it's not laziness. It really is chemistry. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter that fuels motivation, attention, and pleasure. And for ADHD brains, dopamine is in short supply until something urgent, exciting, or risky is before us. So we train ourselves to chase these things. So you might lie in bed, scroll aimlessly, stare at tasks you promised yourself you'd finish, and ask, why can't I just do what I set out to do? And this pattern isn't laziness. It's not a character flaw. It's your dopamine system screaming for a hit of novelty, of urgency, or pressure, because that's really what gets you moving. Now, the struggle isn't focusing. It's functioning without a fire. But here's the catch. That fire you're feeding is burning through your joy and your clarity and your ability to build a life that's sustainable. ADHD isn't just about distraction. It's about dysregulation. And the solution isn't more discipline. The solution is self-awareness, habit design, and clarity. So your brain doesn't have to chase intensity to feel alive. Now, many people with ADHD are not underachievers. They're overachievers who are quietly falling apart. Why? Because success for them is often built on struggle. And they learn to outwork, outpush, and outhustle everyone. But underneath that success is nervous system dysregulation, emotional exhaustion, decision fatigue. And the harder they push, the more brittle you can become. Eventually, it catches up. You can't outrun your biology forever, and no one claps for the crash. So what do? You start chasing the next high. You build a new business, take on a new role, try a new planner. But unless the strategy changes, the cycle repeats. It's no secret I've suffered from ADHD my whole life, and I hate to put the tag on it. It really bothers me to have a diagnosis, to put you in a box, but it's a truth that I live with. I was seeing my therapist today and I had a bunch of realizations, but one is that I love the energy that comes from having more to do than I could possibly accomplish in a week on the calendar in one day. Most of us with ADHD or high dopamine needs, we don't just tolerate chaos, we seek it. And why? Because intense environments, they produce dopamine. And dopamine is the brain's motivational chemical. It's the reason high-stress jobs, last-minute deadlines, and big challenges actually feel easier than a calm, open day with no urgency. In fact, boredom is often painful, and stillness sort of feels threatening. We feel more regulated when we're in motion, even if that motion is frantic. We become chaos engineers, creating fires, so we can be the ones to put them out. And people applaud us for it. You're the one who, quote, gets it done. But the cost is massive. We exhaust our nervous systems. We struggle with burnout. We confuse stimulation with purpose. And we lose clarity on what really matters. So let me ask you this. How often do you feel peaceful? When was the last time you woke up without already feeling behind? Do you feel guilt when you're resting, even when you know you need it? That's not ambition. Not always. That's nervous system fatigue masquerading as drive. ADHD often hides behind the mask of high performance. You might be a business owner, a leader, a parent, someone who seems to have it together. But inside, you feel like you're constantly one step away from it all falling apart. This isn't just unsustainable, it's heartbreaking. Because it means you are building a life around pressure, not peace, around performance and not purpose. And the truth is you deserve more. So how do we change the story? Well, it starts with understanding that your brain isn't broken. It's beautifully wired for intensity, creativity, and deep focus when the conditions are right. The key is to stop relying on chaos to trigger motivation and instead design your environment and routine in ways that generate sustainable clarity. If you've been busy but not actually moving forward, this is for you. Most people don't fail because they lack motivation. They fail because they lack clarity. The personal success planner isn't another to-do list. It's a simple, structured system to help you define what success actually means to you. Break it into clear priorities and take focused action without burnout or overwhelm. And right now you can try it free. Get the 7-day personal success planner at personalsuccessplanner.com. No pressure, just clarity. Your success starts with a plan. Here are 3 small but mighty shifts. So number 1, create intentional structure. Use analog planners. Use the personal success planner. You can get it for free at personalsuccessplanner.com. Block your days and give your brain visual cues. Your planner becomes your calm coach. It breaks the all or nothing cycle. Number 2, build micro awards. ADHD brains thrive on progress. They celebrate small wins. Acknowledge what you've done. Cross things off visibly. This is another perk of the planner. Give your nervous system the feedback it craves before the panic phase. And number 3, practice stillness on purpose. Schedule unscheduled time. Use it to reflect, not scroll. The goal isn't just to pause, it's to be with yourself without needing a problem to solve. And if you're thinking, I've tried routines before and they never stick, that's not a failure, it's feedback. Your system needs support, not more shame. Here's some good news. You don't have to go it alone. And you don't have to keep guessing. At Ryan Watts Life Coaching, one of the most powerful tools we use to help high performers with ADHD tendencies is the Success IQ assessment. And you can get that at ryanwattslifecoaching.com/success IQ. The assessment doesn't label you, it illuminates you. It shows you where your emotional intelligence, your focus, your resilience, motivation are the strongest, and where you're being hijacked by outdated strategies. But you don't need to hustle harder. You need to align smarter. Strategy is really the way to deal with this. You're wired for intensity in a world that rewards calm, but success doesn't have to mean exhaustion. Your clarity is closer than you think, and your next breakthrough might not come from a crisis, but from creating space. So if you're listening, you're thinking, my God, that's me. You're not alone and you're not broken. You're simply wired differently. And that wiring can be honored, supported, and even optimized. A lot of adults with ADHD tendencies aren't underachievers. They're overachievers who learned to build success on pressure and then wondered why they felt exhausted, scattered, or secretly brittle underneath it all. Here's the takeaway I want to leave you with. You're not lazy, you're not broken, and you're not a problem to be fixed. You might just be running an outdated strategy, a strategy that relies on urgency to access focus, chaos to access motivation, and adrenaline to access clarity. And if that's true, you don't need more discipline. And if you want support with that, there are 2 ways I can help for the next 90 days. The first, a free 30-minute coaching session at ryanwattslifecoaching.com/schedule. Or you can access my free Sacred Shifts fillable PDF workbook at ryanwattslifecoaching.com/sacred shifts with an S there. Those links are in the show notes. And one more thing. This episode is the perfect example of offering a cup, not the ocean. It's focused, specific, and it makes something complex feel navigable. Until next time, I'm Ryan, and this is your invitation to redefine success on your own terms and find the space to define you.